The film began with Thomas waking up in a helicopter after escaping the maze with other gladers. Soldiers lead the young men into their facility while fighting off the infected people known as the Cranks. They take the gladers to a facility run by Jansen. He says this place will provide the gladers with shelter, food, clothes, and protection from the flare. The gladers are then assessed medically and blood samples are taken. Afterwards, Thomas is directed to the cafeteria where he meets more young people who belong to different mazes. He joins the other survivors at a table where another maze survivor recounts how they were rescued. The other kid refers to Eris, who has been in the facility the longest and comes from a maze of girls. Jansen arrives to announce the next group of people to be moved to the safe zone. Thomas sees Teresa and Crawford walking outside. He tries to follow them, but a guard blocks his path and informs him that Teresa will simply be subjected to more tests. That night, Eris gets Thomas out of bed and guides him through the vents to show him the room, where a number of bodies are wheeled into for tests and research. Thomas starts to think they're doing something bad with Teresa. The following day, Jansen gathers more teenagers from the cafeteria. Thomas has informed the gladers of what he witnessed, but Newt advises him to stay out of trouble until they discover more. Even so, when Jansen and the others leave, Thomas pretends to be among the newcomers. The guard stops him, knowing he wasn't called. Thomas continues his attempts to sneak through, causing some chaos that draws Jansen's attention. The gladers are brought back to their room. Thomas reveals that he stole the guard's keycard in order to gain access to the forbidden area. He is certain that the facility is hiding something, but the others are doubtful because the facility provided them with proper meals and beds, which they hadn't had in a long time. Suddenly, Eris comes out from the vents, and Thomas joins him. Using the keycard, they open the door to the restricted room and discover the teens called by Jansen, who are unconscious and hooked up to tubes. They hide because they hear the door open. Jansen arrives and communicates with lead scientist Ava Page through a video call. Thomas is surprised to see her alive, given that he saw her shoot herself in a video when he escaped the maze. Ava directs Jansen to sedate and prepare all of the teens for harvest. Jansen negotiates for more time and assures her that all of them are safe in the facility. Ava, on the other hand, complains that the right arm has already taken over 2 other facilities. She cannot afford to lose more subjects since she's close to a cure for the flare virus. Thomas rushes back to his room and informs his friends that Ava is still alive and that the facility is also a part of Wicked. Jansen and his men arrive soon after, but the gladers have already left. Thomas leads the gladers out of the vents, but Eris returns, claiming to help them escape. Jansen directs his men to the medical section, knowing that Thomas will arrive to take Teresa. Soon after, a guard blocks the gladers' path, firing taser bullets at them, but Minu knocks him down. Thomas grabs the gun and gets a doctor to take them to Teresa. They grab her and head out to the exit. Jansen and some other soldiers try to stop them, saying they won't last long out there. Thomas fends them off and barely makes it out with the others. The gladers head out into the dark sandstorm, with the guards chasing them. Teresa reaches an abandoned mall, so they seek shelter inside. Minu discovers a lamp and figures that the building has power, so they follow the wires into the generator room. Minu switches the generator on, powering on all the lights in the building. The lights alert the Cranks, so Minu and Thomas run back to the mall and lock the door. However, more Cranks are in the building, so they run to the others. The gladers head to the upper floors, but a Crank tackles Newt, so Thomas kicks it off. They reach a narrow hallway that leads to a dead end. While the rest try to break down the locked doors, Winston shoots the Cranks. Finally, Frypan slams the door open, but Winston gets pulled back. The Cranks claw at his stomach until the others pull him out and escape. Thomas wakes up the next morning to discover that the Cranks are no longer around. Wicked airplanes fly overhead as they walk through the streets of a destroyed city, so they hide. The gladers continue walking through the mounds of sand as the day breaks. Winston collapses as he's been infected and it's spreading rapidly through his body. He only wants to be put out of his misery and not transform into a crank. Frypan takes out a gun, which Newt takes from him and hands to Winston. Winston says his goodbyes to his friends, and they leave him. On their walk, they all hear a single gunshot. As the others rest for the night, Thomas spots civilization in the distance. When the gang keeps moving, a massive lightning storm starts brewing. Powerful bolts strike down, hitting Minu but not fatally. His friends grab him, and they run into another building. There, they find dozens of chain cranks. Out of the shadows comes Brenda, who lives there with a group of survivors. She guides the Gladers to her leader, Jorge. He notices the tattoos on the backs of the Gladers' necks, realizing they came from a wicked facility and that they are valuable. Jorge also learns they are looking for the right arm. The Gladers are hung upside down in a tower. He asks what they know about the right arm. Thomas explains that the right arm hides in the mountains and rescues the kids from Wicked. Before Jorge can continue, one of his men, Barkley, arrives. In his office, Jorge gathers his equipment and tells Brenda that they're leaving. Meanwhile, Minu pushes Teresa to reach the lever and release them. Jansen's helicopter arrives, and he orders the teens to come back, or they will all be killed. Jorge instructs Brenda to fetch the young people while he prepares a song. Barkley prevents the teens from leaving and calls Jansen on the radio. Brenda appears and shoots Barkley before leading the teens away. Meanwhile, Jorge is playing music that can be heard throughout the building. Jorge plays a song that triggers a series of explosives when it finishes. The facility collapses and kills the soldiers. Thomas and Brenda run toward an exit as they are pursued by cranks. They ran outside into a collapsed building. Brenda slips and nearly falls through a window. A crank emerges and attacks her, but Thomas breaks the glass and causes the crank to fall out while he pulls Brenda up. The two head on to find the others and come across a nightclub run by another survivor, Marcus. He knows something about the right arm, but he doesn't tell Thomas and Brenda of his identity and instead gives them a drink to get into the feel of the party. Thomas trips out a bit and Brenda approaches him. They move in to kiss, but Thomas only sees himself kissing Teresa. He tells Brenda she isn't Teresa, leaving her disappointed. After experiencing trippy visions, Thomas wakes up to find Teresa and Minu sitting over him. He and Brenda are back with Jorge and the Gladers, and Thomas finds Jorge beating Marcus's face in. Jorge demands the location of the right arm, but Marcus reveals that he left it long ago. Angered, Jorge aims a gun at him, so Marcus finally concedes. He tells them that the right arm has an outpost in the mountains. The group takes Marcus's car and drives by a mountain with many abandoned cars. When they get out, gunshots are fired at them. Jorge hands Thomas a bomb to use as a distraction, but they are cornered by two female shooters, Harriet and Sonia. They recognize Eris and decide the group poses no threat to them. The ladies guide the group to meet the rest of the right arm, including their leader, Vince. Brenda collapses, as she's been bitten by a crank, but her infection hasn't spread as quickly as with Winston. Vince nearly shoots her, until he is stopped by a former Wicked scientist named Mary Cooper. She reveals that Thomas was an informant who shared information on all of Wicked's acts. She gives Brenda an enzyme shot to stop the infection from spreading. Thomas watches over Brenda and notices the item she retrieved from Jorge's office. He opens it and finds a photo inside. Brenda wakes up and explains that it's her brother. Brenda recounts that Wicked took him, but after testing them, they discarded Brenda and kept her brother. She hasn't seen him since. Thomas meets with Teresa that night. She claims that she saw her mother go insane as a result of the flare, and that she didn't want to give up on the rest of the infected. That's why she's been working for Wicked the whole time. Thomas notices helicopters approaching them over her shoulder. He realizes she called him Wicked and rushes to warn the others. However, before he arrives at the camp, a helicopter drops bombs that set everything on fire. Soldiers descend and tase anyone they come across. The Gladers assist Harriet and Vince in their fight. Brenda's tent is on fire when Thomas arrives, but she has already escaped. Jorge begs him to join them in their escape, but Thomas has no choice but to save his friends. An electric grenade is thrown on Vince's truck, knocking him and the teens unconscious. Jorge informs Thomas that they have no choice but to flee. Thomas, however, refuses to leave without his friends. As the soldiers round up everyone, the helicopter lands. Jansen searches for Thomas and eventually surrenders. Soon, a large airship lands, and Ava steps out. Ava and Jansen confirm that Teresa has been with Wicked from the beginning. When Mary confronts Ava, Jansen shoots her. As Aries and Sonia are being led to the airship, Thomas reveals a bomb that threatens to blow everyone up. Ava questions whether he truly wants his friends to die, but the Gladers encourage him on. Before he pulls the trigger, Jorge comes crashing in with a truck. The crash creates enough of a distraction for the others to fight back. Thomas throws the bomb at some soldiers, blowing them up. Jansen knocks him down and pulls out a gun, but Brenda shoots him. The others assist in the fight, but Minyu is tossed and taken away. Ava, Teresa, and Jansen escape with Minyu as Thomas helplessly watches the airship take off. In the morning, the survivors seem to have lost hope. Thomas gathers what he can carry and decides he's going back to infiltrate Wicked, rescue Minyu, and kill Ava. Although Vince thinks he's crazy, Harriet agrees that she wouldn't mind some revenge. Now, everyone looks to Thomas as they prepare to take Wicked down. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notifications on my new videos.